Mics are on.
Mics are on. We're live.
Good morning. It is December 17th. We're here for our regular scheduled county commissioner meeting. We have two commissioners present, one absent, and we have our administrator, Mr. Danzel, and our clerk of the board, Ms. Alvarez. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order and ask everybody to please rise and join in the pledge. Okay, we have said the pledge, and if everybody will remain standing, we're going to have our chaplain say a prayer over the meeting.
So before we start, I'm a Christian, so I pray in Jesus' name. If you're of another faith, pray the way you would pray. So just join us, okay? So Lord Father, we just come to you on this day, Lord. We just want to pray wisdom over our commissioners and all of our leaders here, Lord. We just ask that you give them special guidance, provide wisdom to them. We especially pray over the situation that we find ourselves with the Juvenile Justice Center, Lord, and the situation that we have there, that they can do this in a manner that is equitable and do this in a manner without confrontation. We ask for wisdom on this. Lord, we pray over each and every one here. We wish everybody a happy holidays and Merry Christmas and Hanukkah or whatever celebration that they have at this time. We want to wish everybody that. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Thank you. All right, so next on the agenda is the adoption of the current agenda.
Just one moment, Mr. Chairman. Five and six. Okay, Mr. Chairman. The agenda that we have in front of us that was published yesterday, need to make a couple of different modifications to it. I'd like to ask that we pull items number 3, number 5, number 6, number 11, and number 12. And then that we add 2 items, item 14 and item 15. Item 14 being Resolution 2025-379 for juvenile detention, and item number 15, Resolution 2025-380 juvenile transportation. And so, to summarize that, pull items 3, 5, 6, 11, 12, add 14 and 15, which is resolutions 379 and 380.
So on your motion, may I ask that we, instead of pulling the number 12, that we don't pull it from the agenda, but we pull it for discussion so that we can both become aware of the election center. I'm fully aware of this, what's going on. If you'd be comfortable with that, I'd like to leave that on the agenda to get that passed. But just have discussion on it so we could have the elections come forward and present to us.
So pull it for regular business?
Yeah, just pull it for regular business.
So I'm fine with that. So pull item number 12
Put it on regular
into
business.
regular business.
B, okay.
So pull
Alrighty.
items 3, 5, 6, 11, move number 12 to regular business, and then add items 14 and 15, juvenile detention, juvenile transportation.
Okay, I second. There's been a motion and a second for the agenda to pull items 3, 5, 6,
11.
and 11, and move item 12 to regular business with the addition of 14 Martin Hall Resolution 2025-379, and 15 is Transportation 2025-380. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that takes us down to public comment. Is there anybody in the room for public comment? Is there anybody on the phones?
No.
I see nobody coming forward. I see nobody on the phones. We'll move down to the approval of the consent agenda, which is our items 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14, and 15 on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the consent agenda as you just described.
I second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that takes us down to regular business. First item on regular business is the presentation bid openings for janitorial services presented by Michael. There's Michael. There you go.
Good morning.
Buer. There you go.
Buer.
Buer.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all right.
Would you like that? Mr. Danzel, customarily, does the chair open the bids? Okay. So at this time, did you want to say anything
Just
before?
a little
we-
background. We have
Okay.
a current contract that expires on the 31st of this month.
Okay.
We had a bid or a walkthrough, mandatory walkthrough on December 3rd, and that was attended by 4 contractors. All those bids were due this morning. I believe you have 3 in front of you.
Yes. And the first one is from qualifications for janitor by D-Sol Inc. And hopefully we can find the numbers. You want to go ahead and open those others just so they're opened up, so. Hopefully these will be easier to read than the last ones. There's 3 envelopes here. I take it that they all probably have the same thing in them. Usually, oh, that one has a booklet, huh? Yeah, just help me find the cost, what their bid is, because we had a hard time finding it last time. It should be on the last page.
I think it should be on the first page. We have it
first page.
requested to be on the first page.
There should be a total there. 134,000? Okay, so the total is $134,750.31. This is from Del Sol. Yep. And those are those envelopes there. They're all the same, I believe. Okay. The next is ABM Industrial Group LLC, and their total is $197,905.80. So what was theirs, 134? 134. 750.31. 197, 905.80. Okay. We only received 3 bids. I don't have any bid here on this one. There it is. And this is
This is
commercial commercial janitorial services. And the third bid is from, how would you pronounce that? Cabros, and it's 157,500. So at this time, we will,
Usually I take them back and score
Yep.
them, make sure everything's
Yep.
all right, and I'll come back to you guys
Exactly.
with the contractor recommendation.
and this goes with that. Yes, please go back and make sure that they're covering everything they're supposed to be covering, and then we will make a determination from there.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. No, I haven't. Okay, next we'll go down to B, which was added to our regular agenda, approving the relocation of Franklin County Elections Administration Office. And I seen Mr. Beaton was in here. Salema, you want to take over?
Can I first review some of the paperwork we received
Yes,
after the minor?
No, I was just checking,
there we go.
checking with Tim.
Thank you.
So I know you guys have been moving on this and had the opportunity. Both of them are the same? Yep. So please, go ahead.
Well, I guess I would ask Commissioner Baumann to go ahead. I'm not sure what you know about it or what kind of questions you have, but I'm more than happy to entertain.
Sure. I had heard about this probably 6 months ago. I asked about it several times. I was told at that time that there was nothing going on as far as they were aware, and so I literally know nothing about this other than this piece of paper, and a piece of paper doesn't tell very much of a story. And so with my commitment to the community that hired me for this position, I said I don't vote on things that I don't have an understanding of. And so I have no idea what the plan is or why we're doing it. Didn't know that we had an issue, and while I recognize that it is grant funded, I have no idea what the plan is. So trying to understand everything by looking through a keyhole is very difficult. So that's where I'm at.
Sure. Well, I'm more than, yeah, I know we've talked about it a couple times, and we provided a binder to the administrator with the bids in it. And we've been working on this for over a year. It's an opportunity, as we say, to create a election center for the next 10 years, which is that with the move of Wazoo out of extension out of the building, there's an opportunity to consolidate elections. And we're able to do it, as you pointed out, with grant funding. There's no impact on current expense, and we show that in the funding paper. But what we did was went out and got 3 bids to take, and instead of on election night, historically in Franklin County, we've had split services, and we have to move ballots back and forth from the processing center to the courthouse. And there's an opportunity here to have a place, and then again, we have to keep the courthouse open, and we have security here, and it's in split places. And so this was an opportunity to move forward and create something. And one of the things that have come up over the years is being able to get in and out, quickly for elections and not having to go through security. And so that's what this is an opportunity to reach that end.
So I guess I exaggerated when I said I had not heard about it. You obviously in a public meeting said that you wanted to stand up an election center. I am aware of that. Outside of that, I have no knowledge of any of the details of this. Had no idea before yesterday that you were bringing this forward, or that this was a planned project. So, yeah.
So,
Yes, Mr. Danzel.
That would be my fault if that's the case, Mr. Commissioner, and I apologize. The issue was that because it was fully grant funded and there was a need, no hit to the current expense fund. That should be centered on me then, if you're upset.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
What kind of savings could we expect from this every year from not having both the courthouse and your elections facilities open? This would then be able to be closed, everything would be held down there at that location?
And we didn't, I mean, we could try to calculate that. I can tell you we get the synergies from having our elections leadership, having all of their employees in one place and not having to have, coverages for lunches and that kind of stuff. So there's certainly going to be some efficiencies here that are just obvious to 101 look at
Security
it.
would be one.
Absolutely. I mean, just all the way around to try to have a one-source election center. Consolidation makes sense, and it's there. Like I said, we got the 3 bids, and we have, we have the vast, maybe like 90% of it's grant funding. So it's already in our budget. So Commissioner Baumann, I do want to speak to that. I know in the time that you have been commissioner, the one thing that I have detected that you do not care for, and that is something you feel is a surprise. I do know I've spoken with you at least once or twice on this. You're right, it was not down to the detail, but part of that reason was, because this is grant funded and it's in our budget, there's not a lot of decision here other than sharing with you and the community that this, obviously it's your building, it's the building that belongs to the county. But, I guess that, I know Brian wants to take the fall for that, but this is our project, the auditor's project, an elections project, and we did create several binders for this. And I guess didn't get alerted that I needed to.
The other 10% will come out of your budget. It won't.
Yeah,
you won't be
right, we
asking-
have it's the 104.
So it will be coming out of the 140 O&M. We
Okay.
have been collecting what we call equipment replacement funds from the districts that we do business with, so Pasco, Colotes, Mesa, Canal, and we have allocated those funds for this main purpose, right? The election needs, for example, equipment, relocation of a building like we're trying to pass today. Anything that the election department will need in order to successfully hold elections every year, we have this fund just for that. And like Matt said, it is not going to go against our current expenses. That's not going to be touched at all. We have been approved, and those are the papers that I provided you today with, by the Secretary of State. We have a grant for essentially all of our security safety, and that doesn't mean guards. It means computer technology, new computers, cameras, the installation of those devices. And for the furniture portion, we do have close of $72,000 in our HAVA funds that we have not touched since 2020. So that has also been approved by the Secretary of State just last week, and you have the email approving these funds or the utilization of these funds for this exact purpose. So again, we are asking to utilize or occupy what is right now vacant.
Okay.
The very minimal cost that's going to come out of that 104, again, it's already in there, is essentially a cash funds provided by the other districts we've done business with.
All righty, thank you.
In the end, I hope that we can get this through today, mostly because it is an improvement in both security and customer service for the voters here in Franklin County, and it makes sense.
And so time is of the essence to get it passed today.
Yes, I mean, I would say, we've been working on this for a year. We do have county level elections this year. It's going to be a busy year in '26. So to be able to get going on this and get it up and running, I think it'll be a point of advancement for Franklin County, and especially for Franklin County elections.
But you have no idea the savings we could be saving by keeping it all in one location instead of having to have 2 locations open.
Well, in the end, like I said, we could. Right now we are we do have one position that we didn't fill, and part of the I mean, part of it is literally just, being able to manage all of your people in one place. I really want to emphasize the convenience and the security aspect of the ballots are all going to come in there. They're, like I said, we're not transporting them the mile back and forth in sealed bags and the stuff that we have to do. It's just one more step towards security and integrity of the ballots.
All right.
And for the election department, that's the most important fact of it, right? We are, there's 5 of us, 3 in one location, 2 in one location. When, for example, the 2 members of our election department who are here are sick, have requested PTO, have an emergency, we have to disrupt what's happening in the election center. We have to pull one of the 3 of us over there, cover shift over here, and vice versa. For example, there's never going to be an opportunity where these 2 could be gone at the same time if an emergency happens. The election center will always be disrupted because there's only 2. And as you guys already know, per RCW, everything in an election has to be done in 2s. So it's very crucial that we always have 2 people at all times in both centers. So the compartmentalizing of our election center per the employee side of things is going to help make sure that everything that we do, it is per RCW and code.
Commissioner Bauman, questions?
I have no further questions at this time.
I just want to compliment our elections department. You guys do a fabulous job. I sit on the board there to certify the election, and everything that you do down there is top-notch, first class. I just want to say thank you for your hard work for Franklin County. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I will certainly agree with what you said. It is very well run, and having had, it's been a number of years, but had an extensive tour of that center. It makes it difficult whenever we hear stories in the media about, election centers that there are suspected things happening at. Right. Ours is not one of them, and certainly believe it's run very well, and commend you for that, certainly.
I'll entertain a motion then at this time. I can actually make the motion. I move to approve Resolution 2025-377, the approving of relocation of Franklin County Election Administration Office.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for Resolution 2025-377. Is there any further comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. With that, we'll move down to Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Danzel.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bauman. Appreciate the opportunity to give an update. Met with various elected officials and department heads throughout the week. Been working towards, winding down here the last part of the year. I've been working with just a couple of different folks on different various projects. But really what I wanted to say is I wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and to tell them thank you for all the hard work. And throughout the county, there's just been so many instances of people stepping up to do what they can for the people here in Franklin County, that I just wanted to say that I hope that everybody is able to take off some time, recharge their batteries, because we got a lot to do in 2026. But for the most part, Mr. Commissioner, have been working on these administrative issues, and then I myself will be taking a couple days here. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Bauman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It has certainly been a busy week. We had the meeting at the Hapos Center last week about some of the accidents that have been happening on 395 and some of the dangerous intersections and roadways that we have in Franklin County. Certainly thankful again to the state representatives, senators that were there and contributed to that conversation, and they're working on some potential legislation to possibly help in the short term with some of those issues, potentially slowing the speed down a little bit. They've talked about the possibility of an accident risk zone that would work similar to like a construction zone, where that there would be opportunity for enforcement to address it differently. And so I just appreciate everybody that was there, the community that showed up, all of the stakeholders from the State Patrol to the Department of Transportation to our legislators to the port, the city. I even seen the mayor of Kennewick there, and certainly it is of great concern to our community. And as you described, Mr. Chairman, that there's a lot of times that it's just simply a death trap. And I think that we've started the conversation, and we need to continue on. All four of our national offices that represent us at a national level was either there or had representation there, and comments, and I know they're looking at it, and so I don't know where we go from here. We talked about that day that it's not our road, but it's our community, and so would like us to continue with that conversation. Had the Ben Franklin Transit Board meetings with Hapo Center, meetings with our administrator, Wassac Virtual Assembly, pre-agenda meeting, and I'll leave that as my report today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So last week consisted of Hanford Communities, Columbia Basin Sustainable Water Coalition, Ben Franklin Transit, then this week, pre-agenda meeting, which I want to thank Mr. Danzel, Mr. McCart. Thank you for your time, willingness to meet with every commissioner about our agenda and going over it so that we have a smooth meeting. Budget meeting, which our sales tax revenues are continually coming in short. We're finding ourselves in, going to probably find ourselves into some amendments this next year if it doesn't get on the increase. And then the HAPO meeting about 395. I personally want to thank Commissioner Bauman and Mr. Danzel for setting up that meeting. They were the ones responsible for bringing that together. And I know I've been vocal about saying that we don't have anything we can do on a state or federal highway. Our hands are tied. And I had an insurmountable amount of phone calls and people at church coming up to me, giving me their solutions. And I could keep telling them, we don't have any control over that roadway. Who does have control over it is we, the people, going to Olympia during that hearing and making your voice be heard. But I tell you, our voices has been heard. They have stepped up the patrols out there. They say there are cars out there right now working 395, pulling people over. Thank you, State Patrol. Commissioner Bauman asked the question and it was answered. We have the same amount of troopers that we had in 1970. And
1980. 70 was higher, 80 came down.
I thought it was 70 and then 80 went up and then it came down. Whatever. We have the same number as 30 years ago. And our population has between tripled and quadrupled. We need more state troopers over here. Because they said flat out, when you talk to them personally, they can't even patrol anymore. They're going to accident after accident after accident. While we're in that meeting, there was an accident where 3 road crew got hit in Kennewick. This is how busy our roadways have become. But again, I want to emphasize what we can control is Glade Road and 68. And if we don't start getting on in front of this, getting some pullouts for farm equipment and making it mandatory that they use it or the farmer get fined, not the operator, the farmer, we're going to have deaths on Glade and 68. We have already had them on Taylor Flats, 68. That road is so busy, we've got to give the opportunity for the farm equipment to get off the road to let the traffic at least stay at a normal pace or close to it. But I just want to thank you guys for setting that meeting up. That was a very good meeting, very emotional. One of the things that hit home to me most was Brian Davis, an attorney, got up and he represented the family, lost the wife and the daughter. And they went over to his house, the husband, and they got all the guns out of the house because he was so distraught they didn't know what he was going to do. And he's still to the day. And right after Brian Davis came up, the lady that's my neighbor that hit that car going the speed limits, 70 mile an hour in a truck, had 40 yards to stop when it takes 400 yards to stop a truck of that size. She's having a hard time living with herself. This affects everybody. And as a parent that's going to be a grandparent of somebody that's starting to get on the roads driving, this is very, very comes close and to my heart. I want to make sure we have so safe roadways for our grandchildren when they start hitting the roads, when they're novices, beginning drivers. We got to make sure we do as much as we can. So I want to thank you guys. Great job. So that'll end the updates. Do we have a correspondence needed? No correspondence. Public comment. Anybody for public comment?
Good morning, gentlemen. I also really deeply appreciated the hearing on 395 and being able to talk about the how far and wide the state patrol are spread. I did hear some of the initial comments from the governmental agencies that it was about behavior. When you look at that Mercantile intersection, you have to look back and forth on a bunch of different lanes trying to get across or on. And it is very complicated, and I don't think it's about people trying to scoot out too soon. We heard testimony to that, and it's really not about behavior. And I hope that they heard that loud and clear, that because the calming things that they're doing is not helpful, and I can't say that enough. I do want to find out more about the juvenile center, what numbers we're looking at, especially when you're talking about budget. I've not seen that. I'd like to see a workshop if we're going to have our own juvenile system, that the taxpayers have a good view on what's going on with all of that, because sometimes it is smart to renegotiate a collaborative effort. I don't know. I'm not pointing fingers. I don't have that information, and I'm uncomfortable without it. I do want to talk about the voting center. I've gone down there and canvassed the ballots coming in and watching what they do. And these are some of the hardest working people, and they're so nice anytime you interrupt them. So, and that happens on a number of issues. I can say don't feel safe down there trying to walk around through the alley to the parking lot or around the street there. It is not comfortable. You just can't keep your head on a swivel enough. And so I think it would be a savings in liability. I just think another whole building separate from this is a cost in operations. The last thing I would say, though, is given that it's an election year, I don't know if you're aware of a recent WAC that I think was prompted by trying to identify voters. It's WAC 434-324-145, Voter Registration Database Record Information. The Washington Driver's License Number, Washington Identification Card Number, Social Security Number, and full date of birth shown on the affidavit of the voter registration are included in the voter registration record, are confidential and shall not be knowingly disclosed to any person except to state and local election officials and election officers unless authorized by the Office of the Secretary of State. A violation of this section shall constitute the improper use of information in the statewide voter registration database under RCW. Well, I just don't know. Given that we have a massive suit against us, they're throwing the auditors under the bus, and I want to see a workshop on what they're required to do to clean off the rolls and how difficult that is, and is there any conflict whatsoever? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
George Dockstetter, Self Landing Road. I want to congratulate the road department. I had 2 road patrols, a sweeper and a marker truck, go down my road the other day and doing the bar ditches again. which is fine, except for one thing. Where in the hell do you pull off when you got a bar ditch that's 2 foot deep and you got a problem with your car or your truck? I think we need to look seriously at removing the requirement that you go out there and do these damn bar ditches up and down the roads, because there's no place, self-landing road, you're pulling off out in the middle of a ditch. And people get stuck all the time because they pulled off and can't get back on. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Anybody on the phones? Okay, that moves us down to executive session. Do we have a need for an executive session?
Yes, let's do one under RCW 4230, 110, 1I, 10 minutes. We'll have myself, the board, clerk, Ms. Lloyd, and Mr. Sant.
Okay, we'll recess into executive session at 10, or 9:37. We'll be out, did you say 10 minutes? At 9:47. Oh, that went smooth. Testing. We have come out of executive session with no decisions being made. We're going to recess under the same RCW for another 15 minutes. At 9:47, we'll come out at 10:02. Aye. All right, we have come back from executive session with no decisions being made. We are back to regular session. At this time, I'd like to take a 10-minute recess before we adjourn the meeting. Our administrator is on a phone call, so we need to take a 10-minute recess. We'll be back in session at 10:13.
So I need to bring an item back.
Testing. Okay, we are back from recess. It is at the end of the agenda. Is there any other business for the good of the county?
There is, Mr. Chairman. After some additional clarification, need to bring back item number 6 that we pulled from the consent agenda. So I guess with that, Mr. Chairman, I move that we amend the agenda and restore item number 6, Resolution 2025-371 to the agenda.
Second. There's been a motion and a second to re-add Resolution 2025-371, Corrections Department 2025 Budget Transfer for Food Services, Public Utilities, and Computer Bin PIN. Is there any further discussion?
No discussion.
All in favor say aye.
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 So with that, then, we need to approve the additional consent item. So, Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of Resolution 2025-371 as presented.
Second. There's been a motion to approve Resolution 2025-371. Is there any further discussion?
No, sir.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, with that, is there any other business for the good of the county? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. And if I may, I would like to open up the workshop. Our workshop today is composed of proposed Franklin County Public Infrastructure Fund, presented by Eric Johnson, and the Hapo Center Property Discussion, presented by Eric Johnson. And right now, I'd like approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move for workshop agenda approval of 2 items.
I second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So with that, we'll open it up to public comment on those 2 items only. Is there anybody for public comment for the proposed Franklin County Public Infrastructure Fund and the Hapo Center Property Discussion? Seeing nobody coming forward, is there anybody on the phones? Nobody on the phones, so at this time, we will move forward. Mr. Johnson, you may proceed. Thank you, sir, and welcome.
Great, thank you. Thank you, commissioners. Thanks for allowing me the chance to continue to work on a couple of issues for Franklin County. Appreciate it. I'm going to talk about 2 today. The first one is the Rural Economic Development Fund, or what is oftentimes referred to as the .09 Fund, and we'll cover a couple of different items in relationship to background, a little bit about the statute, some program alternatives and options, and some getting some preliminary discussion and direction for how best to proceed. I have given you a number of items in your packet in addition to the PowerPoint presentation, and just want to remind you a little bit about what that is. The first one is the actual RCW 8213-370. So the statute's available. I've also provided you with an Attorney General opinion that was done a number of years ago, but really does talk a little bit about relating to what a public facility as it's defined in statute. I've also provided you with 2 things from Municipal Research Services Center, one an article from 2024 after the last legislative change, and then also have provided you an excerpt out of the County Revenue Guide, which talks a little bit about uses of the .09 fund or funds associated with 8214-370. So that's just a little bit of a background of what's actually in your packet. Just to remind you a little bit about the background, this is a historic revenue source, and I want to talk a little bit about what that revenue source is. But it was actually passed in 1997 as a mechanism to start to assist rural counties. And if you will recall what was happening in the late 1990s in particular and into the early 1980s going forward, is we were starting to see in particular in rural communities, and particularly in communities that had timber as a basis, we were starting to see a spotted owl, and had a tremendous decline on the on the economic engine for many rural counties, which was timber off of the U.S. Forest Service. It was codified in RCW 82-14-370. And then the statute was amended in 2023, and at that time, it actually extended the sales and use tax credit to counties through December 31st, 2054. So that is a tax that is now in place through 2054. A rural county is defined, of which Franklin County meets that definition of 100 people per square mile. There's another subset based on geographic size of a county as well. And it may impose a 0.09 sales tax for economic development purposes. That imposition is actually not an addition. It's not more. It is actually a credit against the state's portion of their 6.5% sales tax. So the consumer really sees no increase. The state actually remits it back to the county for these purposes. So while you did have to adopt via ordinance, which you did in and have done some modifications to your ordinances, you actually did not increase sales tax. You simply said to the state, we're willing to take a portion of that back and apply it for economic development purposes. And as we indicated before, it is now available to you through December 31st, 2054. So what does that look like for Franklin County on a revenue basis? So as you can see, on an annual revenue basis coming in 2003, it was about $2.5 million. In 2024, it was $2.8 million, a little more. Your 2005 estimate, this is from Tim Anderson, he's now estimating it to be about $2.7 million and projecting it to about $2.8 million in 2026. So those are what you actually have collected in your 2 years of your estimates.
And that is sales tax, I take it.
This is all sales tax. This is what's remitted to you from the state. It's your portion of that 0.09 remitted back to you. Yep. On the allocation front, you have had very little activity in the past several years, and that's one of the reasons that we're here today talking about it, is how to revitalize, reinvigorate, rethink the program. Your last allocation was for a little over $1 million to, I believe it's pronounced the Ryman Industrial Center. You made no allocations in 2024. You've made no new allocations in 2025, but you did make a payment of $1,082,000 out of that fund. And there's currently a balance of about $11.3 million in the fund. So you have been collecting without expenditures. And in talking with Tim and trying to look through the records, it does not appear to be that there are any additional outstanding obligations for project allocations at this point. So that's a little bit of the background. There are three primary uses of the revenues. Public facilities, which are to serve economic development purposes in rural facilities. Some of the additional materials I provided to you, and I didn't want to go through it in great detail, but do list the types of public facilities which are fairly robust for economic development purposes in rural areas. The statute was amended to a couple of times in the last couple of years to allow for construction of affordable workforce housing infrastructure and facilities. So you can specifically apply these dollars to areas where affordable workforce housing infrastructure or facilities are needed. This, I think, was actually led in particular out of Chelan County, where they're starting to see, and a number of communities are starting to see, in particular those areas, Upper Kittitas County, San Juan County, where tourism and recreation and VRBOs or you're just simply losing your workforce housing. You just simply don't have it, and you are now having to have people travel, 50, 70 miles for service industry. So, and then personnel in economic development offices is the other eligible use within this framework. I do want to just touch on a couple of the requirements that are necessary. The first one is consultation. And this is very clear that you need to consult with the cities, towns, port districts that are located within the county, as well as the ADO, to make sure that the expenditures are consistent with the RCW. So it doesn't define consultation, I will say that, but it does require consultation. So we'll talk a little bit about how that might occur and how it's occurring in other communities. The public facilities that are funded actually have to be somehow authorized and listed in a series of plan opportunities, from your county's overall economic development plan to your GMA plan in your economic development section, your comp plan if it's in one of the cities or towns, in your county's capital facilities plan, or the CFP for one of the cities or towns located within the county. So the statute's actually pretty specific in this. There have been counties that have received findings from the state auditor for not having their projects listed in these elements. So it is really important to make sure that as you're funding projects, they are within these documents. You can, and as in each of these documents, have a methodology statutorily of how to amend those and how to bring them in. So I'm not going to cover that. And then the legislature, as we made the commitment to get these funds through 2054, we also made the commitment to be more transparent of how these funds were utilized. And so now, we now, as a part of the annual report to the state auditor's office called Schedule 20, we do report to the state auditor's office of how those funds were in fact allocated and expended. So I took a look at and talked to a number of folks, and I've given you 4 examples of, and I looked at, I think I have copies of 12, but I only gave you 4, which were kind of the most normal, from different counties, how their programs work. The first one is, and this is the most, what did I say, consistent, probably in 90% of the examples, is a competitive grant application, where you have set up an evaluation committee, an evaluation process, you take applications, and then that type of list of recommended funding comes forward to the Board of County Commissioners. That's by far the most typical way. There are a couple of counties, including Benton County, that uses a formula, what I call formulaic entity allocation, that each entity by formula just gets a set amount. And then they get to choose how they want to do those projects consistent with the statute. And then I think there's a hybrid way. I saw, for example, Whatcom County said 30% are going to county projects, 40% are going to, I want to say, I might get these numbers back, 40% were going to workforce and affordable housing projects, and 30% to cities and towns in their community. So they actually kind of did a bifurcation of funding up front before they even started the application process. I know there is another county that I saw that holds back funds for emergent opportunities, and those could be, again, you would still have to go through the rest of the processes consistent with statute, but they'd have to be in a plan, they would have to be, you'd still have to have your consultation, but the board would have the authority to look at what those emergent opportunities were. And there are some communities that are still utilizing these funds for debt service obligations and commitments. And so you could bond for these and use these for debt service. And so that is another manner in which I would say, for the most part, of the dozen plus counties that I looked at and or talked to, the vast majority have a competitive grant application. I think I put 4 in your packet. I think I put Benton, Grant, Island, and Lewis. So I tried to pick counties that were kind of generally in that range of population of ours, and wanted you to see Benton. And so there's 4 different programs in there. I've got enough. If you want to see more, I'm happy to send more your way as well.
It says there the tax expires December 31st, 2054.
That's right.
Does that mean that the legislature, to continue this, would have to pass?
That's right. That's exactly right. And so we were able, I think just 2 years ago now, I think it is in 2024, it could have been 2023, time flies. I think it was, we were able to get the extension. It was set to expire. It was originally a 30-year tax, passed in 1997. It was going to expire in 2027. And so we were able to work with economic development organizations, ports, other interested cities, and obviously the Association of Counties to extend that through 2054. It expires. So in frankly, I won't be around to worry about it, but in about 50-ish, you will start to see more legislative action to potentially extend that, if that's the desire of the stakeholders.
And currently, it's 6.5% of the state sales tax.
We get 0.09%
Right.
of the 6.5.
But this,
So the 6.5 doesn't expire, the
Oh,
0.09 expires.
only the 0.09.
Only this portion of that, yeah. So it'd be returned to the state.
So this is not a new tax, it's a reallocation of an existing
Reallocation.
tax?
Yep. It is simply extends the state, the credit that comes back to you of that 6.5%. Yep. And so a number of jurisdictions, not a number, actually a small percentage of jurisdictions have done debt service obligation in the past. I don't know if anyone has done new debt service obligation, but there are some that are continuing with debt service obligation. Meaning that you would have, for example, just hypothetically, you would have, it would appear to be about $2.5 million to apply to debt service allocation if you so choose to do that. But again, most counties are doing the competitive grant application and on an annual basis making allocations to projects. So there's things to consider. Obviously the first thing to consider is to be thinking about, do we do a competitive allocation? Do you do a formulaic entity allocation like Benton County has? That is by far, I think Benton may be one of the few that actually does that specific manner in which that happens. Or do you do some sort of hybrid? Do you hold back? Those are all, I would say, kind of the 30,000 foot level. And then you need to start to go into criteria. We know the projects that are eligible. And so do you start to create program, what are the program objectives? Do you set up, several counties have different evaluative criteria, for example, affordable housing projects versus capital projects. And so you might have to, understand how you're going to do that. Program policies, eligible or preferred projects priorities. Thinking about program administration, the evaluative criteria. For example, program administration, I'll give you a good example. Both, I think, Grant County and and Walla Walla County both kind of have entered into agreements with other parties to administer the program. Walla Walla County, it's the port that administers it, and I think it's an economic development organization in Grant. So thinking about program administration, I would say most counties, though, administer it themselves, either out of the board's office or an economic development office, for example. Chelan County administers it directly out of their own economic development office. Then thinking about evaluation criteria, project selection criteria. Do you require any matching fund requirements? And is that based on the size of the community or the size of the organization? You can scale that. You can scale that based on match. And do you do project funding caps? There are a number of entities that say we're only going to allocate X amount of the money per project. And so that's not uncommon either. So there are a variety of things for you to think about and to consider as you do this. And so I think the next element for me is to see if you have any questions, discussions. I've given you a few alternatives to take a look at. I think some of the next steps might be for you to see what a draft might look like, kind of looking at a series of those, both evaluations and the questions and scoring and the criteria, if you want to go down the competitive application route. If you want to discuss internally, going back up here to, do we think about just a formula allocation? And we don't worry about creating an application cycle, and we don't worry about that. We let that individual entity assure that they're allocating the funds consistent with the statute. It's interesting, I don't know how the consultation of that kind of work does. Is the consultation simply was done at the point of the adoption of the formula? I suppose you could probably claim we did our consultation, that mechanism. You might want to, council may have a view on that. The hybrid model of saying, do we want to say we're going to give 50% to housing, and we're going to do 50% to public facilities. So there's different things that we're going to need to probably really focus on and get feedback on, knowing that most counties are doing the competitive grant application.
Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for all of your work on this. A couple of different thoughts that I've had. I asked my fellow commissioners, I guess for permission, but kind of just said, hey, I want to go talk with the city of Pasco, and have begun conversations with them about an intersection that is, that I don't know if it's 30% of the residents in the rural area when they come into town on Taylor Flats Road 68. We have a 5-way intersection there, and so I think it would be a potentially an ideal candidate for some of these funds. It'd benefit a vast number of the rural area as they come into town. It would serve the city of Pasco, and so have begun conversations about that, and you put a lot of good thought process in here. I think a competitive grant application is probably matches the spirit of the way this was set up, more than just a allocation. Because I agree with you, that might be a little bit difficult to justify that consultation was made before a project was ever even conceived. And I like the idea of hold back and set aside for emergent opportunities. When opportunity knocks, it's too late to prepare. And so if we were to prepare now for that, that possibility or inevitability, depending on how you look at it, I think that's a wise idea to evaluate. The last proposal that was brought before this board was to use this funding for debt servicing for potentially larger projects. I'm not necessarily a big fan of that, and so hadn't really thought about it as far as a match. I'd have to think about that a little bit more.
I think some of those communities that are suggesting a match are trying to understand how they build what I call financing stacks. Very few projects just have your money anymore. So how do you give some priority, for example, to projects where this is the leverage? This is the leverage to get state and federal, funding, or philanthropic funding, or it's being done in partnership with a development project that's going on where the developer is actually contributing. So you can start to think about that.
Yeah, thank you. I do like your idea of assembling a draft and a little bit more complete idea.
So Eric, on the formula entity allocation, on that, once it's been allocated, they are then responsible for any audit on those funds, correct? We are then alleviated from being responsible for those funds since we are the commissioners?
I'm not sure I'm the best to answer that. I would suspect that if you simply are sending them the resources within some sort of interlocal agreement, that they are statutorily responsible to follow the RCW, that I would assume that city probably becomes responsible. I'm not sure that completely. I think you still have the obligation under interlocal agreement probably to assure that it was spent correctly, but I'm not sure how you'd transfer it.
I agree. I think that was a good answer. I agree with that. It would be that contractual relationship with the entity where you sent the money.
And therefore, then I would be in favor of matching funds from any of the entities, that they've got to bring forth some matching funds to make sure that, everything's, instead of just handing out this money, that they've got to show us that they've got these funds available that we match, and then they complete their project.
If I could add something too, I think the important thing, and I'm glad you mentioned it, is I've always called it the growth management portion of it, where you have to have it in one of your comprehensive planning documents. So we're making sure it's not just a proposal that's important to a city or the rural county, but that we're, meeting that requirement as well, that it's in one of those. Like, for example, the HAPO Center is listed in our economic development plan. So arguably we can use .09 funds there. And I'm glad Wes is here because I know he's working diligently on updating our capital facilities plan. So very important, if there's any projects the board is interested in pursuing with .09 funds, that we coordinate with Wes and the cities for that matter, if it's outside of our jurisdiction, to make sure it's in their planning documents.
And the state auditor's office periodically has made this a point of emphasis to audit on. I'm hoping we've brought a lot of transparency to the process, that may become less of a every year type of activity, but because there have been some projects that have been funded that were outside the public facilities, outside of a comprehensive planning process or one of the planning processes, that's been a problem. They've also tightened up or made clarity in the public facilities definition. We had a number of jurisdictions that were utilizing it for criminal justice facilities, thinking that, well, that's certainly important for economic development, is to have, a good criminal justice system. That was not the intention of the state.
I'd love to, if you're willing to extend the invitation to our economic development manager, as well as I see the city managers here, if they have any thoughts
Input.
or ideas. Certainly, you've got a lot more.
It is a workshop, and we have public comments, so yes, if they'd like to come forward, welcome it.
Wes McCart, just,
It's not on.
Light should be on.
there we go. Now can you hear me? I know that we do have a current economic development plan. I know you mentioned, Commissioner Bauman, you mentioned back a little ways that we need to update that plan. I wholeheartedly agree that that plan needs to be updated. I have a lot of thoughts on my own, having had discussions with the port and the city of different things. I'm sure there's a lot more to share. Trying to put together a meeting with the port and the port board on some of their long-term goals that they have. I'd like to do the same with the city and other entities, the other cities that are out there, and find out, what they have on the thing. I know that, like Connell is working on what do we do around the Lamb Weston and the loss to Lamb Weston. How do we deal with that? I think those components need to be part of our plan, and our comprehensive plan policies need to be broad enough to cover that. But the plan needs to be there, and we need to have a mechanism by which we can facilitate projects that might be emergent in that economic development plan, that we have a way of amending that plan without an erroneous process. Comp plan's a little bit more difficult to change the policies on, because it's a once-a-year docketing type of situation for a policy for your comprehensive plan. But I think that's why you need that Franklin County Economic Development Plan to be consistent with the comprehensive plan, but lay out further indications of how you'd like to see this money spent, and give us some flexibility on being able to amend that plan in short order, so that when the opportunity knocks, we're not missing it. But look forward to working on that in the near future.
Yeah, thank you.
I believe we have the city manager.
Good morning, Harold Stewart, City Manager, City of Pasco. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I appreciated the presentation and the education on it. I think a key piece here is, the city's aware of this funding being filtered through the county available to us. I don't believe that it's been available to the city for a few years. So I think we would be supportive of any opportunity that we could have a discussion to put this money to work on behalf of the citizens within Franklin County and the city of Pasco, and any partnership we can do with that to do that. I think we're open to that discussion, that dialogue, whether it's partnering on a project that is of concern to both of us, like the intersection that Commissioner Bauman talked about earlier, or other things. I attended the ending of your previous meeting and some of the comments with regards to some of our traffic safety concerns within the region. And we as the city have those issues as well. So we have projects within our CIP that are major issues with a couple overpasses and those kinds of things to alleviate traffic issues on Road 68. We want to make sure we're not recreating those road issues on Broadmoor as well. And so these are potential funds that are already allocated to our region through you from the state that we can put this to work. And the other thing is having a longer term picture with it potentially expiring in 2054. I think we've got a lot of time to prove that Franklin County and the cities here in Franklin County can use these funds wisely so that the state has confidence in continuing to provide that funding to us for the foreseeable future. So I don't know that I have specific projects in mind, but we definitely have projects that could be considered as part of this, and we would welcome the opportunity to work with the county to find access to putting this money to work on behalf of the citizens of Franklin County and the city of Pasco.
Thank
Be
you.
happy to answer any questions if you have any.
I just appreciate that. A lot of experience with you having, had various funding mechanisms in some of your, past the cities that you've run, and certainly with our economic development manager having a lot of experience and our advisor. And so I'm looking forward to watch this come together.
Mr. Johnson, I do believe it is imperative that we hold back, set aside for emergency. I think that we don't spend this out. We need to make sure that we have funds available in case of an emergency. What that amount is, I don't know, but I think we always need to have a set aside, a set amount for emergencies.
So perhaps what some next steps would be is I would, what I'm hearing is probably the competitive grant program and follow up with some percentage or dollar amount of a set aside. We kind of play with some different options for you to take a look at. And then come back to you with a draft for you to take a look at again in a workshop. At that point, you may want to do something in advance with some of the other stakeholders, the cities and the two ports. I think the Port of Colotis technically is an eligible entity to be a part of the advisory board or have consultation due to them. So something to be thinking about as well. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Will be another public comment at the end of the workshop. We have another topic we got to engage in, and then there will be public comment. So if you want to
I do want to, and
proceed with the
if I can do it without Teresa's assistance.
second half here.
Good luck with that.
Hapo Center property discussion.
Already not trusting my capabilities, so, all right, I give up. All right, that was my problem. Okay, I got it. Right, is this the one? No. It's right there, I know, I'm hitting the wrong one down here.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Teresa.
Not a problem.
Humiliated me. Thanks, Teresa. Okay, so I'm going to transition to talk about the Hapo Center Sports Complex and where we are at on that. So for today, I'm going to give a little bit of background introduction. I'm going to talk to you about the facility and property considerations. We'll talk around, but not in great detail, about the 3 interlocal agreements that sit between Pasco and Franklin County. I'm going to discuss the Pasco communication, and again, City Manager Harold Stewart is here, so again, might be able to ask questions of him as well. Won't go into any detail about the draft appraisal, except that we do have some, do have the draft appraisal, and I'll talk a little bit about the analysis, questions, discussions, next steps, and I do know we will go into executive session to talk about a few things as well. So in 2025, in July of 2025, we met in a workshop to do several things. We wanted to set the stage for the discussion, and part of that was directly related because of the expiration of interlocal agreements that is happening or has happened. We talked about the land, we talked about the initial track investment, we talked about the operations historically, talked about capital improvements, we talked about the planning process that was undertaken for the future of the facilities, some initial thoughts that initially had come from the city of Pasco. We looked at the options and opportunities, and we're going to come back and talk about those and the directions that you had provided initially within that, and then the next steps. So the things that you had directed a little bit initially were, we looked at a variety of options, and the ones that you first settled on was to get the appraisal. I will say the appraisal took at least 6 to 8 weeks longer than I think we originally had anticipated, so we did think we would be further along, but we do have a draft of the appraisal at this point. And then you started to, you kind of tasked me with looking at all things associated with the property, besides title, the leases, and agreement limitations, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that. So that's, I think, where we sit right now, which was this idea 7 sitting kind of within this context of if we were to dispose some or all of the property, what does that mean? And particularly some of the technical elements of could we even do it, let alone what would that mean? So to remind you, it actually sits in 5 parcels. I actually think, do I have, which one? Maybe not.
On the left-hand side, you're on off.
I think I have to turn it on, yes. Okay, so we have 5 parcels that we were appraised and we're talking about that comprise the property. A 2.11 acre parcel, a 4.1 acre parcel, the large 27 acre parcel that has the Happel Center, the large parking area, the ice arena, and the RV park. We have a parking lot area here of 5.89 acres, which supports overflow parking. Also has an agreement with the transit organization I'll talk a little more about. The 31 acres, which is oftentimes referred to as the ground lease property, which is where the athletic field complex for the city of Pasco is. So those are the 5 parcels that are in context here. Any questions on that? Okay. So and you have a kind of a larger snapshot of some of the findings in your packet, but the considerations that I took a look at are kind of embedded in these next 2 slides. It certainly first appeared that we would get the property appraisal. We do have the draft of that appraisal now, and we're going through the analysis process of it. The second piece that I looked at was kind of the original restrictions on the land donation, and as near as we can identify that there are no restrictions that would prevent you from selling that. In fact, you have disposed, I don't have the map up anymore, you have disposed of a number of parcels of the original 100-acre process, so you did surplus those. I looked into a couple of other things. The ARPA funding. You received and have spent almost $6.3 million in state and local recovery funds. And so as you look at that, there does seem to be the potential for an obligation for repayment of all or some of that based on the ARPA guidance that has provided, as well as the sections of the 2 CFR 200. So there are pieces that you could become responsible for. In looking at it, it's not clear whether it would be all or a percentage owed to the federal agency, and so we would have to go through some additional processes to do that. It is interesting that in the draft appraisal, it does not indicate that any of the improvements that have been done so far had any measurable increase to the property itself. So we might be able to argue that there was no measurable nothing that we spent money on did anything measurable to increase the appraised value of the property.
In fact, we could argue the fact that all we're trying to meet is the state's Clean Energy Building Act.
Good. So there's different recipients allowances for disposition procedures that are laid out in the policies, but there is definitely, I would think, some degree of potential requirement to have some payback, potentially. But it could be all 6.2. It could be a percentage of that, and that would be some discussions that we would then have with U.S. Treasury. There is no requirement in the guidance. The guidance actually does call out the fact that we are not required to tell the Treasury before we actually sell the property. But there are several options to go through if we do, in fact, sell the property to communicate. The next one is dealing with the current agreement that you have for Hapo Arena HVAC and control upgrades. It's a grant of $2.9 million. At this point, you're only obligated, at least in my research so far, is for the $57,691 for the energy audit. So you have not made a commitment at this point for the entire $2.7 million kind of addition to the arena multipurpose facility. So that's still out there. If you were to proceed with that and complete that, there is a 10-year repayment. And I think all of these, and let me go back to the ARPA as well. If you were to sell it and it didn't change use, for example, if you sold it to another public entity, it didn't change use, you would not have probably an ARPA repayment responsibility. Similarly, probably you would not have a legislative appropriation from this capital project for the HVAC. If you were to sell it, you might have a repayment responsibility because you're going to sell it within that 10-year period. If you did not, if you sold it to a public entity, you probably would not have a repayment because it might retain the same use. The original 1992, where the county did get $2.78 million for the capital development of the arena and the original track, the records of that original contract I cannot find. Department of Commerce did not respond to, or responded, and we do have a response that they could not find the original contract, or they don't have the record. It could have met their retention requirements, and it could just simply be gone. I found within our records an amendment to that contract, but I can't find the original language that actually says what's the terms of that. How long do you have to utilize that? But at this point, I'm not sure you'll have any obligation to repay that $2.78 million. There are two grants with the Recreation Conservation Office, and one where I think you might have what's called a conversion requirement. I'm still waiting for the final document from the RCO on the land lease. This land lease, you were a co-applicant with the city of Pasco for lighting those ball fields. Commissioner, the chair of the board, it was actually signatory to the agreement. I've seen that. You can actually go online and see that. So the county and the city were joint applicants. There is generally a requirement for those recreational facilities to stay in perpetuity. So there could be a conversion requirement, and that could mean that lighting athletic fields elsewhere in the community might be the conversion requirement. But we'll have to find more out about that. So think about that. There was a small youth athletic facilities outfield fence system, but Pasco was the sole applicant for that, and that was a fairly small grant of about $10,500, where I don't think the county would hold any obligation for that. The Holiday Inn Express, there are two issues in two areas there that we have been trying to work through. The first was what has said to have been an agreement that was executed between the owners of A1 Hospitality in Franklin County. I can find communication, but I can't find any agreement that was ever executed. That doesn't mean it's not there. I simply cannot find that there was ever anything executed. That agreement was also contingent upon an additional 90 rooms being constructed. So I don't think that portion has occurred. I would say the other element for that, I'll proceed on to the next one, which was the Holiday Inn Express deed restriction. And this was related to the property, the construction of the hotel was perhaps closer to the property line, and the city of Pasco wanted, I think, more clear space around it. So the county at the time had expressed, okay, we'll do a 40-foot, no structure will be created within 40 feet of the track hotel structure. I cannot find any deed restriction that was ever completed or filed. And at the time, the prosecuting attorney was concerned that this would violate the surplus property statute and policy, that you were actually granting a right to someone else and there was no compensation being occurred. So it was gifting. That same concept probably would be actually frankly true of you giving the right for overflow hotel parking in your parking lot. Probably would be a questionable gifting at this point. I'm not sure you would execute that without compensation. So
Eric, going back to the recreation and
yes,
conservation grants, who was responsible for the dugouts for those ball fields?
I think the city of Pasco put in all of those facilities, yes.
Okay, and so they're responsible for the upkeep of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Well, yes, we'll get to that. Their ground lease agreement has expired, so we'll get to that intricacy, and I probably will not fully comment about who's responsible at this point.
Okay.
There is a road right-of-way. The Convention Place and Home Run Road are Pasco road right-of-ways, so you do have road right-of-ways in the midst of that. The original ice arena, it does appear that the original ice rink investment in the conversion of that facility into an ice arena was supported with .09 funds. There does not appear to be any responsibility statutorily to reimburse .09 funds. There are two ice hockey agreements. You both will probably recall these since we did these fairly recently. The current agreements both expire July 31, 2026. There is no, in the adult league, it does not appear that there is a termination ability without cause. The amateur youth league gives you 6 months to terminate.
The adult league ends when?
They both end July 31st, 2026.
Thanks.
So at this point, even if you wanted to terminate the youth league, you're probably not saving a whole lot of time. They both are going to expire July 31st, 2026.
Okay.
The Home Builders, you have an agreement with the Home Builders Association. It was a 10-year agreement executed in December 31, 2028. And in lieu of compensating the home builders who installed the concrete floor in the arena, you entered into an agreement to give them a credit for use for their events. And so they have been taking an annual credit on a schedule basis. It does appear that, and I'd have to do a little more work on this, but probably I've estimated between 57,000 and 92,000 rental credits remaining. There's some discussion that they didn't have a chance during COVID to use one of their credits as well, so there could be an additional credit as well. So that's the Home Builders.
And that the credits will also expire December 31st, 2028, resolving the COVID extra year.
I think as soon as that dollar amount is completed, whether we've got to figure out that COVID one, yes. So it could actually extend it a year, possibly. I looked into, because I'd ran across some information, interesting enough, in a 2011 email. where the county was saying, what if we sold this place? What would our tax liability become, because it's being funded with municipal bonds, and so they could actually incur some tax liability. We confirmed, talking with both council and the county treasurer, that the bonds were retired in 2022, and the county would hold no tax liability since the bonds are now retired. Benton Franklin Transit parking lot. There was a 2005 agreement between Benton Franklin Transit and Franklin County that was executed to allow Franklin County parking for Benton Franklin Transit riders to use the parking. There's a 10-day termination notice included in that agreement, so not much notice required for that.
And are they paying for it?
Nope, there was no compensation in the agreement.
So are they responsible to maintain it?
I would have to go back and look at the agreement to see if that was even discussed. Ironically, you'll get a kick out of this. I do see communication in November of 2008. This is in there. This is my notes as well. Benton Franklin County offered $250,000 to assist in the parking lot, but wanted assurances of use, and the county declined at that time. So, meaning that they would have paved it. So, and there are some interesting things. There's in 2005, there were a number. I don't know what prompted this. You know, I could take a shot at attorneys right now, but I won't. The county entered into a number of release of liability for people utilizing the van pool parking for the area for van pool parking use, and it was with the individual drivers. But that was just a short period of time that was being done. So not sure what happened at the time, but that activity seemed to stop in terms of entering into those agreements. The HAPO naming rights, effective for 10 years through March of 2029. The county can terminate that agreement with 1 year notice during that agreement. The county may be obligated to pay up to $150,000 in unamortized amount if it terminates early. So you might have a penalty to pay. If you can't rename it, sell the naming rights within that period, even if you terminate it. I would say the one that I probably will need some additional eyes on is the HAPO ATM machine. You granted an easement for utility and communication on December 12, 2022. That was part of the requirement within the naming rights, was for them to allow an ATM. It appears that the right to continue that ATM may go past the naming rights agreement. So did not see a termination clause on the easement that was granted. So something we'll have to spend a little more time taking a look at. And again, these are my notes. These are my analysis. I shared some of this with Jeff throughout the process, but he's not been able to go into a deep dive to, make sure that everything that I saw was the same as what his interpretation would be. And a lot of these comments are just extracted right from the document itself. HWL Agreement, who operates the current, is our current operator at the HAPO Center. There is termination clause. It can be done with no less than 90 days, so of the date of termination. So there is an opportunity to eliminate that. It does require a termination fee of equal to 3 times the monthly management fee, which is about, I think, $20,000 a month. So you're going to have, if you terminate early, you will have some compensation required there.
That fee goes up this year.
Could be.
It keeps going up
Yeah.
and up and up. So, yeah,
Yep.
that number will rise.
And their agreement goes through when?
It was a 5-year agreement. It concludes September 30th, 2028. We have discussed one of the potential liabilities are the future contracts that might have been agreements for use of the HAPO Center. So we are leasing and renting that facility, and we have contracts that go well into next year, maybe even to the following year. So we are working. I don't know if I'd have to check with Mr. Briggs and Mr. Dansell, but we did suggest new language into the HAPO agreement to make it very clear that the county doesn't hold any financial liability if those agreements were to be canceled. So it's unclear whether the existing agreement had that. And also the Red Cross, there is an agreement I've heard in writing. The Red Cross does have, in fact, I ran across this in emergency plans for the use of HAPO Center as an emergency shelter. There is storage equipment containers on site that the Red Cross maintains and keeps stocked for, and if we ever have to use that for a mass evacuation site. But I've not seen that agreement to know the termination clause and other things like that. So that's kind of the sense of the property. Happy to answer any questions around any of that. Jeff, I don't know if you have anything to add. I know I probably should have put the disclaimer out up front that your legal counsel would probably have to confirm and affirm and look at a lot of these as well. So,
I think you did a really good job laying out all the agreements and all, the history of the HAPO Center. So thank you, Eric.
There are 3 interlocal agreements, and we will talk more about this, I think, later today in executive session and the interrelationship between these. May 1994, you entered into an interlocal agreement regarding the financing, acquisition, and ownership of a multipurpose arena and exhibition facility. You look at the October 1994 track financing lease you entered into. You didn't, but the county did. And in May 1994, the ground lease, which was more specific to the use of the 31-acre sport field complex. And they are all intertwined in ways that are sometimes challenging to understand. So, but those are all important. Probably the biggest thing you need to remember is the ground lease actually expired in November, and the interlocal agreement for financing and the interlocal agreement number 1 there expires the end of this year. So they're all either one expired and 2 are coming due. So it's a very timely discussion for us to really think about both the relationship with Pasco as well as the future disposition of the property.
And with that, number 2, track financing lease, which is HAPO financing lease now. I mean, we got to...
Yes, without getting into too many details, and Jeff, you may feel free to launch in when I misspeak, because for me, they were complicated to kind of understand how they all work together. The track financing leak was largely around the capital improvements of the track. I don't know, Jeff, if you...
No, that's what it is. No. And then the other one is more like a lease agreement. Well, no, actually that's backwards. The financing lease is where Pasco sort of holds this leasehold interest in the property, but we're actually managing it. I think that's the most confusing part of it, because normally when you lease a building, you're physically in the building managing it, but they hold a leasehold interest in it, but we manage it for them.
So the City of Pasco had earlier communicated you in May of 2025 around different elements associated with the ILAs. And so we covered that back in 2005 around governance, financial oversight, operating subsidy. It was really around, if we were to move forward with the new ILA, how might we, these are areas that they wanted to have conversation about. They also had talked about the long-term disposition of the fields back in May of 2025. They talked about expanding and potentially including the ice rink into the discussion and the ILA. So different things that were talked about Since then, Pasco has gotten a little more precise on, and Harold is here, city manager, Stewart is here, and you might engage him after I finish my presentation on Pasco's thinking around some of these questions. But they're very intentional and directed. The first one was to extend the ground lease. I have a draft resolution that you have that would extend that ground lease through 2026. And that is a question that you're going to need to resolve, and so that we do have that request from the city of Pasco. And that would allow them to continue scheduling and the use of those facilities through 2026. The second one was I would say the B, C, D, and E are all questions that were more directly related to the sale and the transfer of ownership, and those related to things that we couldn't really answer until we saw more what the value of the property was, as well as going back to your kind of the original options that were in front of you, which still range from trying to redo interlocal agreements, clear through the disposition and surplusing of the property. So those are all questions that you'll still need to kind of resolve upon. The next steps are, I think, coming to some understanding again about value of the properties, and then certainly coming into discussions about how the interlocal agreements work into this discussion, the extension of those interlocal agreements, and ultimately the board's, what is that the board wants to do. And so I think slowly I use this analysis of we are slowly dumping all of this information into your hopper, and out of that hopper is going to come a decision. And we're nearing the end of adding information into your hopper and getting you to the point of what do you want to do.
Questions?
The one thing I would add, just for everyone's benefit, is so the costs and expenses of running the HAPO Center, the city and the county share that. The administrative, they call it the operational costs. But I think historically we've done a poor job of actually capturing that, and I think there's a lot of staff time spent working on things related to the HAPO Center that don't actually get billed to that fund. So I know we've operated at a loss for years, but I think that the margin is actually greater than what is shows on paper.
I agree. After looking at all the figures, I think one thing too that'd be beneficial for the Board of Commissioners and the county would to be able to bring in a real estate person to help us with this, because as a citizen living out in the county, I am unaware of selling ground by the square foot, and they're within all the nuances of large sales, small sales. As I've talked to a realtor, I think it would be beneficial for us to bring in a consultant to talk about this that's well abreast of all of this land and could help us walk through this if we so choose as to sell any part of it. Just my thoughts. And I would like to invite the city manager, if he would like to come forward and speak on any of these topics that Mr. Johnson went over, as far as the ball fields and everything.
Both sides are interested in finding a resolution on a success over the years. Softball fields are scheduling softball. The restaurant all benefit from as a see that move forward in a positive way, which is why we made the request extending the lease for that through 2026. That'll get us through the end of the competitive season. My conversations with the council have been that One, it's a high priority to get to a resolution on this with the county, if possible. We don't want to keep extending leases over and over and over again, we want to find it. The city is potentially interested in acquiring the property depending on I will give a caveat, though, that all my conversations have been with the city council elections. I have at least half or majority of that council that's going to change. So the political will of the council may change here within the next few months. I don't know. I haven't had an opportunity to have that conversation. It has to be a fresh blood that's willing to focus more on the future than what's happened in the past. I don't know. I haven't had those conversations. I just want to give a caveat that my conversations with the council, their position may change here in the future. So we are excited about potentially having those conversations. We do believe that there is a lot of potential and opportunity with this property, particularly in avenues of sports tourism, which a lot of the for that. We have some interest in seeing that continue. However, similar to you, and I respect you're going through this process and having these conversations of the financial commitments that come with this. I think that's doing your due diligence and likewise, we have the same obligation to our citizens, and we have our own financial challenges and struggles that we have to overcome as well here in the very near future. We're committed to finding a solution. We would like to find a resolution to this in 2026, if possible, to make this a priority. But the first course of action is, our concern is extending the softball fields. Once you lose those tournaments and they find other facilities, getting them back. We don't want to lose the momentum that we've already gained. But that request advises questions is outlined by Mr. Johnson. Go back to have a more comprehensive conversation with my council on what they're willing to do. Priority. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I just want to say thank you for coming today and being part of this meeting and knowing that you're new at the helm and trying to figure out your council. So I appreciate all that, and I think we can work together and make something happen on positive for everybody.
Thank you for coming, and as Eric has demonstrated to us today, there's more than 30 years of working together and agreements that have been talked about. In some cases, we don't know if they've been completed. We have made some marked improvements to the facility over the last couple of years, and the city has certainly improved the ball fields and so forth. So, yeah, I'm not sure, but I think that we have a good platform to work forward from. Thanks for being here.
So with that, do we have any more questions for Mr. Johnson?
You spoke of a executive session. I'm assuming that's where we would go at this time.
For me, that's the next step today.
And,
Yep.
and what length of executive session are you anticipating? How long, Mr. Johnson?
What do we think? I always underestimate, and then we have to extend.
I think we'll be there an hour, at least.
I would go with an hour.
Okay, because I have a 12 o'clock, and they need a quorum. I have a 12 o'clock law library that they need a quorum to pass one. I might need to, if we could go in for 40 minutes and then have a recess so I could join them so they could pass their budget.
Yeah.
So let's say that we're going to go in for 38 minutes. That would bring us out at 12 o'clock exactly.
Yeah, and I can get on the meeting as we're in
What
executive session.
RCW?
It's one pertaining to real estate negotiations.
About public comment.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Dockstader, that's right. We have public comment at the end of this workshop. So at this time, to go into executive session, I think we should open it up for public comment at this time. So please, public comment. Thank you for the reminder, Santa Claus.
Well, might have got cold this time. George Dockstader. One of the things, referring back to the '09 funds, we're getting roughly 2 to 2.5 million a year. One of the deals, that's county funds, but we have to remember that the majority of the residents are sitting inside the city limits. I think one of the great uses of that money would be the improvements of 68 and Clark Road. Whether it's a circle, a stoplight, or whatever, but there's gotta be something, it's getting worse every month. And most of us in this room that travel in the county at all are more than aware of it. And, there's enough money there now that, and along with the city, because the city basically owns 80% of that intersection. And, but we need to come up with a plan that's gonna make sense, and hopefully the city doesn't screw up the rest of 68 coming out there like they've already done with the part that's there, and end up with a decent road. So, as far as the track facility, I don't know why in the hell you guys didn't sell that a long damn time ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
Very much appreciate that presentation, very thorough. For the first time as a citizen, I feel like I understand all the complicated issues that go into. I like the facility very much. I concur. Pass its bonds, it might be sell it. My concerns back to the first discussion about the '09 funds as well. Housing, in affordable housing in this area. We've got an entire city out there off of that West Pasco area. We're seeing a lot of small condominiums going on. And at Road 100, we've got another small area. I mean, I'm not sure. I would like real good scrutiny by you guys as to how much money. Also, the Economic Development Office. I don't know if the government got enough people and even applications for volunteers and planning commissions already. Let's not keep layering. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Is there anybody on the phone? So at this time, I would like to recess into executive session under the RCW of, can you get that?
So, Mr. Chairman, my proposal would be we recess at 11:30 for 30 minutes. So we would go into executive session under 4230, 110, 1C and I, both C and I, for 30 minutes, starting at 11:30 and coming out at 12 o'clock exactly.
Well, it's 11:26, so why don't we go in at 11:27 so we can come out 3 minutes early so I got time to get into my meeting without scaring them for a quorum. So we'll go into executive session at 11:20.
Give me 2 minutes, I gotta run to the restroom.
Oh, okay, we'll go into executive session at 11:28 and we'll come out at 11:58. And thank you, Mr. Johnson, for an incredible presentation. There you go. Those are the ones you use. That's your spot. Stay in your lane.
Those days of being in a spot are gone. Long gone. They're not coming back.
We have come out of executive session with no decisions being made, and we are, is there any other business in the workshop? I will adjourn the workshop.